Back at the book segment tonight, one of the reasons we have so much bitterness in America these days is that the national press heavily favors the Democratic Party and has given President Obama a pretty soft ride. Thus, the question becomes, is there any press organization that's trustworthy? Joining us now from Washington, Fox News political analyst Charles Krauthammer. So I know I'm putting you on the spot. We don't want to talk about Fox News because we both work here. We have a conflict of interest. But you, as a commentator, newspaper columnist, author now, things that matter, you have to watch the media reports come in. You have to be well informed. You have to be up to date, as do I. Is there anybody that you trust?
Well, again, apart from Fox, no, of course not. But the point is, unlike you, I don't believe that there are people who speak objective truth. The way I get my news is to try to figure out what happened. Now, what I do is I read the mainstream media, but I know it's through a liberal filter, so I don't accept everything I read, but at least I know there was an attack here on a certain day at a certain hour. I know that when I read the New York Times, I'm reading the liberal flagship of America.
Even in the news columns, even in the news reportage?
Of course it's in the news. In fact, that's where the main influence is. The editorials are so bad, so slanted, so childish, they have no influence. What influences everybody is the choices that the editors make what to put on the front page, because that declares to the rest of the media, who are the followers, what's important. So, for example, if there's no coverage, essentially no coverage, of the 2 years of the missing emails by the IRS in the Times, it ends up on page A17, if anything, that's a signal to the rest of the media not to cover it. So the main influence is, of course, on the front page, on what's chosen, what's not chosen. The war on women, for example, is a phrase you will see in the news pages all the time. They may put it in quotes, they may not, but that's a trope. Even their own ombudsman wrote a year or two ago that when Occupy Wall Street came along, the New York Times acted as a cheerleader in promoting it day after day.
Well, gay marriage is another example.
Well, no, as the equivalent of the Tea Party, whereas I and many others who could see this clearly predicted it would dissipate with the first winter wind.
Yeah, and I was one of those as well. All right, so every morning you get the Washington Post, which was an esteemed newspaper because of Watergate, and you used to work there. When you read the articles in the Washington Post, is it the same as the New York Times, the same skepticism?
Well, first, Bill, I've never worked there, but my column has appeared there.
Right.
But it's been carried there since 1984, and it still is. And I must say the editorial page and the op-ed page of the Post, the op-ed page is the finest in the country, and I would say that even if I wasn't on it. Well, I would probably say it if I wasn't. I'm not 100% sure I'd say it if I wasn't on it. And the editorial page, which has a liberal, orientation, is one of the fairest, the most hard-headed, and the most informed. I read it every day, and I read the op-ed page every day.
So you don't have a lot of beef with that, but you still think in the news columns you got to check it.
All the mainstream media are through a liberal tint.
Let's go to electronic.
And I read them with profit because I apply a reverse tint. Now, if you're a 15-year-old, you don't have that. You don't have the experience.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's where I think the influence is pernicious.
All right, let's go to the electronic media.
As well.
CNN, okay, worldwide news gathering organization, distributed on most cable systems. Can you believe what you hear on CNN?
Well, look, CNN, they're still looking for the Malaysian plane. I think they've actually located Amelia Earhart, who's going to be a new anchor for them. But who watches CNN? The only place
why you have to watch it? I do once in a while.
I don't. The only place I watch it is when I'm waiting for an airplane in some lounge somewhere.
So you don't have any drive there. How about the network newscast, the 3 at night? Do you believe in what's on there?
I have not watched a network newscast on any of the 3 networks in 20 years.
Why?
But because I gain nothing from it. There's nothing that they would tell me that I don't know. I know it's soft news, and I know it's liberal news, so why would I need to read it? I get the basics from the newspapers. But look, the thing that I think you ought to stress here is this. We have always had liberal bias. When Ronald Reagan ran in 1980, there were only 3 networks, They were all liberal. They were all anti-Reagan. That's the way it was. Reagan won. Nixon won. I think that the media today are in better shape because there are so many outlets. The liberals no longer have a monopoly, and that's the good news on the media front.
All right, Charles Krauthammer, everybody. Things That Matter, his bestseller, still cooking.